morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another fine Wednesday morning. Partly cloudy, 36 degrees here in the city of Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Light Thief Productions. I think we've got a great show for you today. Apologies to anyone who intended to join us just because of the promotional picture with the city council member who was supposed to be our guest today. But as is often the case, city council members cancel last minute. So we've got a different wonderful guest for you. Timothy Reimer, loner of skeletons to the world, and also host of the best holiday themed display in West Philadelphia, I believe. We're gonna talk this week. We're gonna talk communities, spotlighting champions of change, and discussing global events that touch us all. We let's see. Sorry, lost my notes here for a second. This happens to me every week, and you'd think I'd be prepared, but I'm not. Ballots, boundaries, and belonging. The truth is on the side of the oppressed. That's a quote that is inspired by Malcolm X and often attributed to Malcolm X, but nobody can find an actual specific instance of him saying that. So it fits with something that Malcolm X would say, and so let's say it is a paraphrase of Malcolm X. We're going to be talking evictions, Black history, independence, and displacement. So without further ado, I'd like to bring Timothy up on screen, let him introduce himself. Timothy, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
Thanks for having me, James. Hi, everybody. This is Timothy Reimer. My pronouns are he, him. Um, I run a construction business in West Philadelphia. I am a Republican committee person in the 46th Ward, and I am just generally involved in the West Philly local community. And as James pointed out, I am the bringer of Halloween to the Cedar Park neighborhood.
The
And maybe
bringer.
one day if the administration of the city comes around, I can be the Philadelphia czar of Halloween. Perhaps a dream.
That would be an interesting office. The new mayor does have seem to have a lot of czars and or like specific very niche offices that she's creating. Uh, I didn't think of that until you just said that.
Well, truth be told, I would prefer the title Lord Mayor of Halloween, but
Lord
I
Mayor.
think that might rub the mayor the wrong way.
Yeah, you don't want to have a slightly better title than the mayor, especially in a city like Philadelphia. You know, it could be contentious. You could step afoul of the wrong person.
Yeah, well, and they're never going to appoint a Republican to be the czar of anything. So,
I don't
these are
know.
these are dreams,
These are
and
dreams, yes.
maybe one day they'll be realities. But we all need something to strive for.
I mean, we were talking a little pre-show, one of our favorite people, former council member and former mayoral candidate David O is now the president of the Asian Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah,
um,
The
Asian
Asian
American
America
Chamber
Chamber
of
of
Commerce.
Commerce of Greater Philadelphia, I think is
Yeah,
the correct name.
yeah. So I mean, maybe you can get David to create a czar of Halloween position for the um
Do
Asian
I
neighborhood.
mean Do Asian Americans embrace Halloween as the same way as the rest
Oh
of
yeah,
us?
yeah, yeah. Especially like Japanese. In Japan, in Japanese culture, Halloween's a fun holiday.
Oh yeah, I mean, however it happens, I would be on board.
Um, Talk a little bit about your skeletons. What are they doing right now? For those that don't know, Timothy has a very large skeleton that he puts up in West Philadelphia every year. And this year, right? You introduced the smaller skeletons.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar, every year I put on a Halloween event in my neighborhood in Cedar Park. Um, we turn the alley behind our block into a haunted alley for or haunted house for the neighborhood children. We build tunnels and tents and displays. We have all types of decorations and props. We have actors back there hiding, and we open this up free to anyone in the community. The idea is that children whose parents don't have money to send them to like a haunted house or whatever else that kids do on Halloween, that there be something special for everyone in the community that doesn't require money. So I've been doing this for a couple years. I have way too many decorations. um, but specifically with the small skeletons, um, my stepfather passed away last year, and he was a really big fan of the Grateful Dead. So those of you who are familiar with the Grateful Dead know that one of their classic pieces of like their classic icons, are the so-called dancing skeletons, which are six skeletons in the rainbow color pattern with canes and top hats. So and also last year was also the 10th year anniversary of the passing of my youngest brother, um, who was an openly gay man. So it was sort of two for one. I made these rainbow skeletons to honor both my stepfather and my little brother, and I put them out there, and the West Philly being West Philly, the community just loved them. The gay community was like, these are our skeletons now, and they better stay out forever. Um, and actually, and we had a lot of great interactions with neighbors coming up and telling us how much they love them. And what really struck me was uh, a person came up to my partner and told my partner that the skeletons made them feel seen and included. And that was an unintended side effect, but it felt really nice, to do something that made people feel connected and part of the community, and that they were welcome and safe. And so with that in mind, I have like 80 skeletons. So I took another set, and I painted them up in the colors of the trans flag, the teal, pink, and white. And then you know and we did that because there is a young person who lives across the street from me, who volunteers and helps us set up the haunted alley for the neighborhood. And they came out as trans over the last year. And you know children can just be really rotten. It's hard enough being a trans person as an adult. I can only imagine what kind of crap that a young person has to take for that. And so we made the second set, the trans skeletons, specifically just to show love and support, to our one. I mean, it was inspired by our one neighbor, but it was, for the trans community writ large in our neighborhood, which there are, it's a pretty welcoming place. But even in the progressive left bubble of West Philadelphia, there's still a lot of bigotry and hatred directed against trans people. And I don't truck with that. Like I want all of my neighbors to feel like they can come to any event that I put on, and feel welcome and safe, because I judge people on the quality of their actions, not how they look and how they dress.
Yeah, I
And so
mean
then
it's it's really weird the kind of existent and continued undercurrent of like racism and like and any sort of like unacceptance in Philadelphia. I've always found kind of weird. One of the reasons why I'm based in Philadelphia, like I've never talked about this on the show before, but like, you know, I was in my 20s at one point and had the choice of living wherever the heck I wanted. And I like literally chose Philadelphia as a base because I've often said, Philadelphia is the kind of city where you can run into anyone anywhere. Like there's not like cloistered neighborhoods, like you know, like it's not like, you know, somebody from west can't go to south, or somebody from south can't go to center city, or somebody from Fishtown can't be found in West Philly. Like all of the neighborhoods, you're likely to find anyone you know from any neighborhood in any other neighborhood. You just run into people all the time. And
Yeah, I mean that's.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that I completely agree with that sentiment. Like there's a lot of people think like, oh, that's like a bad neighborhood. You can't go there. But there's nowhere in Philadelphia that I don't feel like I can walk around. Like, the our 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 city is certainly far from perfect, but we really are the city of brotherly love.
Yeah,
And
it's funny because like anytime you see people like on the internet or something commenting that, you know, like the city's unsafe, like you can instantly tell that they're from the burbs, because like any Philadelphia resident will be like, it's not unsafe. It's perfectly fine. You can go anywhere. Just don't act a fool and you won't get shot.
yeah, well, I mean, be respectful of your surroundings and the people around you, and you won't have a problem in this town.
Right, exactly. Um, yeah, and so like yeah, I just find like it's always, you know, like it's always rather, so then the undercurrent of like disrespect, racism, sexism, anti-trans, whatever, anti-gay, it's I know it's a very small minority of people, but it's also always shocking, somewhat shocking to me, because like the city has always been relatively inclusive, you know, not necessarily in its leadership or policies or, you know, policing, but as far as like, it was never a slave, you know, holding area.
Not never, but we threw that off way ahead of
Right,
everyone
way
else.
ahead of everyone else, and there were freed people living here way before the Civil War. There were, you know, black merchants that were based here because it was here, you know, because you could be a black merchant. Um,
Well, I think we owe that to our Quaker heritage. I mean,
right,
Quakers, like everybody else, are far from perfect, but they are a very accepting lot, and throughout history, they're usually on the right side of social issues.
right,
And that's one of the things I really like about here. And and I guess perhaps it might be fair to acknowledge that, like you and I, as as straight presenting men, get a little bit of extra privilege to walk around feeling safe wherever we are, and maybe, other people don't quite feel as safe
true.
for other reasons.
I will amend my previous statement that, you know, but that there are people who live in the city that feel unsafe. Um and they're justified in their feelings, you know. They don't, I wouldn't say that there's no reason to feel that way, to feel that way. What I would say is that um most people, it, I don't know that it's a matter of privilege to feel safe. I would say that it's a matter of experience. Because you know, I've heard before like this argument that it's my maleness or my size that leads to my sense of well-being, my sense of safety. But also, I know people who are larger than me and more physically intimidating than me, more capable than me, who have gotten mugged or gotten robbed or been cheated on things. Um, in the city. And I know there are people. There's actually a guest coming on in a couple weeks who was shot. And not through any fault of his own. He's not. He's not. He's a straight presenting white cis male. Um, and he got shot in an attempted robbery. And yeah, those things happen. Those things happen literally everywhere in every city. It's not, like the city isn't a democratic cesspool that is, burning or something. I don't. I lose
No,
track of the narrative from the people who are trying to stoke fear, but at the same
well, I mean,
time,
so
go ahead.
so I don't think it's necessarily trying to stoke fear. There is a lot of crime and violence in our city, but it seems to me that the people getting hurt, are not 100%, but largely involved in things they shouldn't necessarily be involved in.
Correct.
Like the average citizen on the street, isn't in mortal danger.
Right.
If
It's
you're
it's not
if
random. It's not the majority of it is not random crime.
exactly, like if you're not involved in some dirt, it's unlikely to come on you. Not to say it's impossible. I mean, I was I was mugged and beaten many years ago. Some kids, knocked me off my bike and pistol whipped me and stole my bike and my wallet. But I mean, that was in a nice neighborhood. I was in Center City basically, or right on the edge of Center City. Like it wasn't, it wasn't. It was just like a crime of opportunity. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, late at night, and bad things happen sometimes. Like it's not. It could have been anywhere. I mean, I've been robbed in other places too. Like I still I got robbed in Camden when I was a little kid leaving a concert, and I still go to Camden. Like I'm not gonna let that scare me out of a place. And
Yeah, so to all of this, some of the things I would say is, yes, I have a relative sense of safety because of my experience. I don't think that my sense of safety is because of my privilege. Because when I was new to the city, I didn't feel safe. Um, but then through observation and experience, I realized what I can do to keep myself safe, which is not get involved in petty disputes with local drug lords. um not try to take over a neighborhood from whoever is currently powerful in that neighborhood, not to like wear flashy jewelry or something that is ostensibly valuable in when somebody near somebody who is suffering the worst economic anxiety that you could possibly have. um and I don't think that my sense of safety comes from my privilege of being a male presenting person, or my privilege of and it is a privilege regardless of the fact that sometimes it can be disadvantage. I fit in most places. People don't look at me. Most people look at me. I wouldn't. Like 60% of people look at me and they go, "Oh, you're just a guy," and they don't assign a narrative to me that is different than their own. Whereas a lot of people, like if you're blatantly white and you're in the wrong neighborhood, you know, a narrative gets assigned to you instantly of, well, what are you doing here? Why are you in my neighborhood, etc. Or if you're blatantly black and in the wrong neighborhood, you know, you could go to, like, even like going to a Hispanic neighborhood and you're just visibly categorically black. You can there's narrative that's assigned to you. What are you doing here? You know, and then all these like protective instincts come up in the local population. Um,
So I mean, I kind of feel the opposite way. I feel that, you know, perhaps my whiteness is why I can just go through those areas. And I've often been told that I carry myself like a cop sometimes. Um, which, you know, maybe it's the mustache.
I think
I
you
don't
carry
know.
yourself like an undercover cop, maybe, but uh,
I mean something, but my strategy has always been, you know, like if I if I'm somewhere and I'm feeling sketched out, you know, I will find the nearest old head and I'll chat up the old head. Like, you know,
I think
it doesn't my experience is whatever neighborhood you're in, people just don't disrespect the elderly in our community.
sure.
You know,
I think
and
the privilege that you have, the privilege of whiteness, is more the appeal to authority. Like you can instantly rely on being able to appeal to authority, or at least from an outside perspective. I haven't experienced this, I don't live it, and it's probably different from your perspective, but from a black person's perspective, I look at a white guy in the wrong neighborhood and I go, oh shit, you know, like anything happens to him, there's going to be cops and like people are going to get busted heads. Um, that's where your protection comes in, you know, at least from a community perspective. Whereas, you know, people look at me and my privilege is either he's going to be hard to roll, like he's going to give me too much trouble, or he's just some dude and like I'm not going to mess with him because he's just some dude. um
well, I mean, whatever the reason, I'm glad that, you know, you, and as many people as can be feel safe. You know, I wish it were more people, but you know, we can all do our part, you know, like circling back to where this started in little ways to make the people who don't feel safe and welcome, to make them feel a little bit safer and more included.
yeah, and let's take a look at why, you know, why crime rates are what they are, why people are in this position. An in-depth analysis of eviction rates done by Metro Philadelphia reporter Martin Sackensong um, was published recently, showing that African American women with
Women,
children
yeah,
make up 70% of the eviction rate in Philadelphia. Even with recent efforts like the eviction diversion program, etc., which, to its credit, the eviction diversion program has proved a 75% success rate, creating many less on the books evictions in Philadelphia, though many sketchy landlords still do illegal evictions and things like that. Um, I mean, the root of any the root of any security anybody feels usually is in their comfort of being able to call a place home. Um, And without that comfort, it is no wonder why members of the community, and obviously this, you know, this eviction rate means it's the black community, and you know, younger members, women and younger members of the black community feel unsecure. Study after study has been done, and I feel, you know, feel free to try and counter me on this. I don't even have to look up or quote the studies because I know they're so ubiquitous that, you know, home security is the first step. If you're secure in your environment, if you're secure in your home, then you're so much less likely to pursue any sort of criminal activity, that it's unimaginably easy to resolve crime if you look at it as a matter of housing security.
Well, I'm not going to try to refute that because I agree with that. That's just a very common sense approach. If people's basic needs are met, a place to call home, like a roof over their head and food on their plate, then my experience tells me that most people are just decent human beings, and if their needs are met, they're not going to try to color outside of the lines. Um, and I don't have studies or whatever to back that up, but I that's just my lived experience. And
I've read the studies because I needed to for a gig I did with the Philadelphia Unemployment Project. I needed to learn about this, and so it is a privilege of having had that opportunity to spend time at work learning about housing. That I know, ingrained in me now is this understanding that like housing is literally the first step. Food is a close second step. Like you can't just throw people in houses, but give people shelter and give people food, and they're not going to start committing crimes just randomly.
I think it's even more basic than that. It's if you educate people, you create opportunity for them. And when people have opportunity, they don't need to resort to crime. And it's sort of a chicken and an egg problem. Like, how do you educate people if they're don't have a place to call home because they're running around trying to, find a place to be safe, but I think it really starts I see it starting with education. And, you know, when you look at the state of our educational system in this city, in especially in the poorest, blackest neighborhoods, that the terrible job we do at educating people, goes a long way towards explaining some of the problems we have later on. And
Well, I mean,
I
and even like even when you look at education, most of the children who are failing to succeed in their education are either food insecure or home insecure, housing insecure, and those two factors contribute to educational achievement more than almost anything else.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's when I said it's like a chicken and an egg problem. Like they're definitely interconnected. Um, I think the way to solve it is making sure that children get a good education. But as you pointed out, to make sure that they're able to get a good education, they need to have a full belly and a place to rest their head reliably, so that as a child they're not worried about that. Like no child should ever have to worry about that. And truth be told, no adult should ever have to worry about that in a society such as ours that is so wealthy and has such abundance.
Yeah, I mean, I pointed out a couple of weeks ago. I actually pulled the numbers while we were talking about it on the show, but there's literally I forget the exact numbers right off the top of my head, but it's something like three houses for every unhoused person in the city of Philadelphia already. Like there's three available properties in the
Well, whether or
cities.
not those houses are fit for habitation is a different story, but there's enough
Sure.
space for everyone, that's for sure.
There no uh, what did I did, yeah, no, I pulled the numbers that I pulled were for properties that are in the city's inventory. So properties that may not be habitable. However, a quick I could do a quick look. I haven't done it, but you can do a quick look at available properties in the real estate market. And
There's a lot.
I'm sure that number is even greater than the 4 to 7,000 unhoused people estimated in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't think that estimation is at all correct or accurate. I mean, just because someone is not on the streets doesn't mean they don't have
That's why I
stable
gave
housing.
such a wide range. There's an argument amongst people,
I
even
would
people
say it's like
who's
an order of magnitude higher than that.
you'd think like
Um, you
40,000.
know, I mean, so we were talking about this earlier. Like I live in a 5 bedroom house, and it's normally just my fiance and I, but part of one of the things I do with all of this extra space is I always have a room in my house that's open to, a friend or a friend of a friend who, needs a place to go so they can reset themselves.
Right.
And, those people, they might, like have a place to be, but they don't have
Yeah, but that's still a housing insecurity.
yeah, exactly. Like they're still insecure in their housing
Yeah.
because they're relying on my generosity. They're not able to do so themselves. And I mean, I'm happy to do it because, even I've been in that position once or twice in my life, and a friend has helped me out. And it's just, it's the decent neighborly thing to do if you have the space and capacity to help people out when you can.
Right.
And so, I think when you take into the account the people who are insecure or close to not having a place to be, the number is much higher than the unhoused population that people see on the streets. And for addressing society's ills, we need to we need to consider both eventualities.
Well,
Like
that like I said, that's
it's
why
no
I gave such a wide number. The conversation amongst people who serve unhoused people is exactly this. Do we include only people who are out on the streets or in shelters, or do we include even people who are sleeping in their cars or RVs illegally, or camping illegally, or couch surfing? Like, how far do we call? Where do we draw the line between unhoused and temporary living situations? I had to agree with you that you can't be housing secure if you're couch surfing on somebody's couch. So I would draw the line there, probably, short of, if you don't have a lease, or a claim to a space that is, a legal claim to a space, then you're housing insecure, is what I would say. But like that's a conversation kind of above our level. Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean I think it's important to acknowledge, but you're right. It is that's more nuanced and complicated than just, hey, you're out in the street.
right.
Um, but I do think it's important to recognize that
But even
it's
if
how
we
people
went
wind up out in the street.
even if we went with a much larger number, even if we went with, I forget what the I'll look it up, but it'll take me a minute. There is a really large available property count number. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean I believe it. I work in construction, and there is no shortage of people fixing up houses. Like, I turn down work because there's so much of it.
so according to I'm pretty sure this is the article I came up with on a quick look in last time. So this is vacant houses in Philadelphia. A Story Maps article. It's a scholarly article by a grad student. It's well done. It's nicely illustrated and stuff. But as of 2020, um, there are over 130,000 vacant houses, or yeah, 130,000 vacant houses. So even if only a percentage of that inventory is, and I'm going to paste this, I'm pasting this link to both you and Meg so you guys can take a look at it if you like. Um,
Was that in the chat?
yeah, in the chat. Um, but yeah, so even if you assume that only a percentage of this inventory is habitable, and a lot of it that they talk about is uninhabitable. And even if you assume the number is the largest end, so let's say 10,000 unhoused people, the difference between 10,000 and 130,000 is so huge that I'm relatively certain with very little money you could bring all the habitable spaces into compliance with, or uninhabitable spaces into compliance with habitation regulations, and house those 10,000 people for, you know, very small amounts of money. um
Well, I mean, small amounts of money is relative, but yeah, I mean, I agree with the basic premise that there's enough places we could put people.
right.
You know, the problem isn't a lack of buildings or what have you. It's a lack of will
It's
to do
it's a
right by
lack
these
of
members of our
connecting.
society.
It is the problem that capitalism often creates, and I'm not an anti-capitalist by any means, or, like, some, person who's utopian in their beliefs. I run three businesses. I have been a freelancer most of my life. I'm very steeped in capitalism. So, but the problem and source of income in capitalism is often, and the problem that capitalism creates is often, artificial scarcity. You take a resource, um, and in most of capitalism, you're making money by either making a resource scarce and collecting it to yourself, or by connecting people with a resource. So you and I connect people with resources. Like, that's 90% of what we do for a living. Like, like, I spend most of my day connecting people with a resource. Like, I do. I often say production is, tell me what you want to happen, and I will tell you how much it costs and how to make it happen. um I would say in construction it's a similar thing. It's just more specialized. You're Tell me what you want built, and I'll tell you how much it costs, where to get the materials, and how much, and provide the labor that knows how to put those things together. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not a well. I mean, maybe the pricing I get to charge is a scarcity thing because there's more demand for this sort of labor than there is labor to do it. But no, that's basically accurate.
but yeah, so the issue isn't one of resource availability. It never is. We make enough food in this country to feed the entire world like six times over. We make enough, you know resources of any type in the combined manufacturing and output of this and all our associated countries, to give everyone a middle class, standard of living in the world. The issue is resource allocation, and essentially that's what the issue always is. And it uh
It,
how
it's so
Go ahead.
if I think the problem is isn't resource allocation. It's well, I mean, I guess greed by extension is resource allocation. It's taking more than you need. But there's a lot of people, if everyone were middle class, there's no such thing as middle class. Everyone's just the same.
Right.
And a lot of people they don't want to be the same as everybody else. They want to be better than everybody else. They feel
Sure.
they feel they feel better having somebody underneath them, so to speak. And
I by the way, think this is a relatively Eurocentric view of social structure. I think that if you look in other cultures, that there's not so much of a rat race that's ingrained into the culture, but
I mean, maybe not. I mean, I think it's a function of capitalism, and other societies that aren't capitalistic might work out in a different way. Like other societies that are more socialist or even communist might have a different end result. But I think when you start with capitalism as your organizing principle, this is sort of where you end up
right,
because people are greedy. Um, it's our fundamental nature. That's why capitalism works so well.
yeah.
Because people are selfish and greedy, and it's why communism on a large scale infrequently works because people, it's not your natural reaction to be altruistic and generous.
I mean,
You
so
know,
the counter argument would be the native potlatch culture, the Native American potlatch culture, wherein those who are more successful are by social obligation more generous every year than those who are not successful. Um,
yeah, I mean but that's unfortunately just not the dominant way of doing things.
Right.
I mean,
It's not the.
I
All I'm saying is, I think it's a legacy of European settlement and your especially Protestantism culture, and and not
well, hey,
necessarily an inherent human thing.
as someone who was raised Catholic, if we can blame Protestants, I'm on board with that.
So
Especially someone who's half Irish. If we can blame the Protestants,
I wanted to talk about the article, the North Philadelphia Bookstore Black History Month programs. Treehouse Books is it exists year round, and they offer free books to underserved communities at from their location at 15th and Susquehanna. Um, and they have a wide collection. But for Black History Month, they're doing a special uh, collection and offering of books. And this is the way this ties in is I think it's interesting that in this community centric business, um, they find it important to donate money in the form of things that they are making money off of. Um, you know, through the giving away of books.
well, I mean, I am 100% behind that. I mean, so
This ties
I don't
in.
like the
This by the way ties in with your education first narrative.
yeah. I mean, that is the relation. Now, I don't like that we have to have a Black History Month in this country. Like Black people in our entire country, Black people are about 1/8 of our society.
Yeah,
We're if we're divvying up the year, that means they would get a month and a half. All things being
not
equal.
the shortest month of the year.
Yeah, and the shortest month of the year, no less. And I mean, if we're going back to the Roman calendar, the last month of the year, no less.
Right.
That's the reason February is the shortest, is because in the Roman calendar, the year ended
It's the
at the end of
extra
February.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think rather than having a Black History Month, the contributions in the history of all of the people who make up our society, need to be thought about and considered year round.
Well,
But since
now
we
you're
since,
just
since we don't have that,
now you're just
you know,
talking about what's the big Republican boogeyman right now, sorry,
there's so many to choose from. But well, I mean, so where I was going is like, in a perfect world we wouldn't have to do this, but we don't live in a perfect world. So when we're not when we're intentionally minimizing the history of Black people and other minority groups, it is important that we set aside time to focus on that. I wish, we didn't have to do that. I wish we could get to a place where it's everyone History Month all the time.
Absolutely.
That we
No.
that we
And
appreciate and respect where all history comes
you know,
from instead of.
let's teach real history instead of calling it woke to do so.
Yeah, yeah, no, we're on the same page on that,
Yeah.
and it's no, no, and people giving out books. I mean, we do have a free library system that, if anybody's listening, you don't have a library card, get a library card. Go to the library. There's all the books in the world there. You got kids, get your kids a library card. There's all types of great stuff at the libraries
I
that
think one of the reasons that libraries are such successful tools of social growth is because they do offer a safe space. You know, we talk about safe spaces on the left, and then they're made fun of on the right by people who don't understand the concept. But, you know, they do offer a safe space in that they are kind of a second home. They're set up such that, you know, people can feel comfortable to be there. And I think part of the one of the big losses for this city and for other cities that have taken similar measures is in an effort to save on budget, they cut services like libraries, which makes the city itself inherently less comfortable.
I completely agree. I mean, the fact that every branch of the library is not open from like at least 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the weekends is an embarrassment.
Yes.
Um,
I think they should
you
be
know,
open 24/7. There used to be 24/7 libraries.
yeah, I mean, I could see how as that would create budgetary challenges and safety challenges, but being open at least 12 hours a day every day, seems to be the minimum. And if we got to shut down the library, if we can't have the libraries open on the weekend, then why aren't they shut down on like, Tuesday and Wednesday instead? Like the weekend is when people have off time, like people who work, kids aren't at school, like that's the time the library should be open.
Yep.
And growing up, like be I had the internet at a pretty young age because my father worked in technology or works in technology. But growing up, I would go to the library, when I had a school paper or something to do. And, that meant I would go there on the weekend to, like take out a book and, do whatever reading I had to do for my assignment. And if we don't have like how can our kids in our city, do well if they're being denied this really, really basic thing? Like, I thought we had sorted like as a society, I thought at the turn of the last century we sorted out the importance of libraries and made it a point that they were everywhere.
We
But,
did, and then
and then we let it go.
people decided that budget was more important, and running a city like a or a government like a business or like a household was more important, and that was a stupid idea. And I won't go into all the economic reasons why and why people who say things like you have to balance the budget for your household. Why wouldn't you balance the budget for a government? Are stupid and wrong, and I would like to throw them in a river. Anyway,
You know who I'd like to throw in a river because I'm mad at them in relation to libraries is book publishers. So
it's true.
a library does not pay the same price
No,
for a book
yeah,
that you and I pay.
mm-hmm,
Like they have to buy a special license for their books so they can lend them out to other people.
yep,
And that's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, could you imagine if you went to buy a book and they're like, "Oh, are you planning on sharing this book with anybody? If so, your book is going to be $50 instead of 15."
yep.
Like, that's outrageous.
Well,
Like,
artificial scarcity, my friend.
yeah. Yeah, well
um,
that concept with the publishers, that's a big pet peeve, that like a huge chunk of our library budget is going to overpay for books that after a while are just going to sit on the shelves, not collecting dust for the most part, once they're no longer popular. That's just ridiculous. Like the library budget should be going to librarians and the physical infrastructure of the library, not padding the profits of book publishers.
So, sans libraries, there are community organizations and organizations like Treehouse Books. I also wanted to talk about Spiral Q in this discussion of homelessness, home missing homes, finding a place. Spiral Q is a community organization. Primarily they do artistic expression through puppetry and dance. They're a black-led organization, woman-led organization that is an invaluable piece of West Philly culture. And they are, as an organization, relatively homeless, even though they have a ton of stuff that they need to store and take care of all the time. They're on their third property in the space of since the beginning of the pandemic. Um, and they're doing a search for a permanent home, but one of the problems with cities like Philadelphia and uh, especially I think that's endemic to cities like Philadelphia, specifically how Philadelphia property values haven't risen at the stratospheric rate that other cities have, is that all the properties that are for things like light industrial use, which is what artists and makers are considered, gets bought out by people looking to create housing in a market that is flush with housing, as we just said. Um, you know, there's more housing available than there are people that are looking for houses. So why are we building more housing?
Yeah, well, it's people need a place to call home, and people also need a job, so that needs to be balanced. Now, the zoning code, like you say, like it does differentiate uses for spaces, and unfortunately, like areas that are intended for business, are getting snatched up, and unaffordable housing is being built on them, that caters to either the middle or the top of the market, but never the bottom half. Well,
Right.
not never, but almost never the bottom
Well, and
half.
then is also supported by supposedly providing low income housing that invariably ends up not being low income housing, and then they just pay a slap on the wrist penalty or, whatever. Anyway. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, all of this has to do with homelessness. I think it's important that we find and provide. Again, I think it's not a lack of resources problem. I think it's a resource allocation problem. Um, you can call it whatever you want. It's just a really bad way of dealing with providing people space for what they need. Um, one of
yeah,
the Yeah, go ahead.
it's bad resource. It's resource allocation being the issue. The allocation of space in our city is just atrocious.
Yep. I wanted to talk real quick about and this doesn't tie in very well, but I did want to talk a little bit about the 2024 presidential election. Um, um, I wanted to bring up and acknowledging we only have 5 minutes left, so I really want to just get this through real quick. we talked a little pre-show about this. Um, Independent candidates or third-party candidates or spoiler candidates, if you want to call them that, what they're for, what they do, especially in our two-party system or even in our Philadelphia in our one-party system. Whether you like to acknowledge that it is a one-party system or not, it is.
It is.
Whoever wins the Democratic primary is going to be the office holder. Um, and in offices like city council, even if you are ostensibly a Republican in your viewpoints and policies, you have to run as a Democrat. Even in the mayor's office, I have said this before and I will say it again. Sherelle Parker is not a Democrat. Her policies are not Democrat policies. They're not progressive policies. But then neither is our current president, Joe Biden, a Democrat. He's a neoliberal, and he comes from the 80s and 90s, where Democrats were courting um, Republicans by saying things like, some black children are just super predators, and that blaming everything on all of society's ills on drugs and the inability of the black community to take care of itself. Um, I still, Biden is still doing that to this day, even though he's backed off of it somewhat. Um, I still see the roots of his, ostensibly, for lack of a better word, or perhaps calling it what it is, racism. Um,
Yeah, that's the right word.
it is, and don't get me wrong, Trump is not anti-racist. Trump isn't any less of a racist. He's always been a racist. And he's always been horribly racist. Even going back to his early days as a landlord in New York. Um, and he's a worse for the community type of racist, I want to say. I don't know how to put it. Um,
Well, I mean, at least so at least if Trump wins the nomination, we like there's a pretty decent chance he won't be president. Like nobody likes Joe Biden, but even more people don't like Donald Trump.
sure.
And
And
last time, like my take on the last time is that not Trump won the presidential election.
yes, it
Like I don't
did.
think
And that's where
I
they're
don't even
going
think
again.
I don't even think Jill likes Joe. Like like that's how unlikable Joe is. And
um I mean, that is where they're going again, and it's unfortunate because I don't this shouldn't be the argument, but this is where third party candidates come in, and David O was essentially our third party candidate for the office of mayor for the city of Philadelphia, which what third party candidates do in our limited elections in the United States is tend to bring up and highlight the deficiencies of the winning candidate, which, for better or for worse, I think is kind of a good thing.
well, who are our third party candidates this time? We've got, I keep getting messages from Jill Stein.
Yeah, so
She's in it again, and is Cornell West still doing his thing?
Cornell West is running. Jill Stein,
RFK.
Chase Oliver, and RFK. Those are the four big, actually active and recognized third party candidates. You could argue Nikki Haley is a third party candidate. Nikki 3Ks. Uh, she's not really a third party candidate. What she is she's a spoiler racist candidate. She's a spoiler white supremacy candidate. And
Well,
that might actually pull enough support from Trump to make him not as clearly the nominee. He's going to be the nominee, uh, which
Yeah,
which and I've said this on my personal Facebook page. If he is on the ballot in any state, our government has failed, and he's going to be on the ballot in at least 48 states, um, and our government has failed. I mean, it is just a failure of government to allow somebody who quite literally led an insurrection against an incoming president to run for the office that he was trying to overthrow.
so as a Republican, this is an unpopular opinion, but I completely agree with you. Trump belongs underneath the jail.
Yes.
Like you don't get to assault democracy like that and then come waltzing in for round two.
Right.
Like you belong in prison. I was really hoping the Supreme Court was gonna step up and be like, this is just outrageous, no dice, but that's not gonna happen.
No.
The ruling hasn't come out yet, but it's clear as day they're not gonna kick him off the ballot. And so, he is going to be the nominee. Um, I tried to run for RNC delegate on the odd chance that, it would get to a second or third round if it wasn't clear of voting, and we could actually have free reign in as delegates who we pick. But there's just finding 250 Republicans in the third congressional district of Pennsylvania is a
Is
massive bar to
difficult.
overcome. Yeah, there's like a chunk of like Lower Marion where there's lots of Republicans, but I don't fit in over there, so
Well,
I don't have any.
I have a friend Charles who you should talk to. And if Charles happens to be watching the episode, I hope I'll remember to connect you two the next time. He's kind of a one of those folks who can schmooze anybody and does actively speak with a lot of both Democrats and Republicans in political circles. So maybe we can get you that that nomination.
Well, I mean, it's too late now. The petitions ended like last week on Tuesday, I
uh,
think was the cutoff.
all
I
right.
mean, I did all right. I got 100 and change signatures, which is a pretty good accomplishment, but it wasn't nearly enough to get onto the ballot.
Hmm.
So, I'll try again. I'll try again for something else another time. But it's at least I tried, and I'd also spent too much time working on fixing the co-op in my neighborhood instead of getting ballot signatures. So
I want to acknowledge it's 11:04, almost 11:05, and so we've really run over time. Um,
I have until noon
okay.
today if you want to keep chatting.
Yeah, I would love to keep chatting, and I'm going to keep this going, but I'm going to just do, for those who have tight deadlines, I want to thank you for watching today, and continue to watch the episode or listen to the episode if you're doing it on a podcast format. If you like what you're hearing, please get hitting the like button out of the way. Just hit the like button on whatever broadcast you're watching. I really appreciate it. It really helps us out. It's a free way to help us out. If you want to help us out more, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Blue Sky. We even have an Instagram, but we don't really post the episodes to Instagram. But feel free to like us on Instagram. Um, the only thing we don't do is TikTok, so we'll probably get around to that eventually. But it's really an odd format for my generation. Um, and then
For all generations.
watch or listen to the rest of the episode when you have a chance. It's in instant replay as soon as the episode's done. It's live on all the outlets: Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And so you can just watch from wherever you left off whenever you have the chance. I hope you enjoy the conversation enough to tune into the rest of it. So getting to that, yeah, we have those four um, independent candidates, five if you count Nikki 3Ks. We have a bunch of independent candidates in the in the Democratic column. None of which most of you have probably ever heard of. Dean Phillips is still actively running for the Democratic nomination and is still on the Democratic nominee ballots. Um, and his platform is mostly for the folks that are never again Joes. Like Joe Biden has the folks that feel like Joe Biden has screwed up by not um following through on his campaign promises might like Dean Phillips. That he's Medicare for all, comprehensive immigration reform, which is code for let's find some way to work with Republicans to get immigration reform through. Um, in More border security, pathway to citizenship for those who are here now, and streamlined process for seeking entry to the country legally. Which, by the way, is if you are one of those people who likes to say, "Oh, my parents or my grandparents or my great grandparents came here legally," that's what we're talking about is streamlining the process so that basically all you have to do is register that you entered the country and where you're coming from, and then you can start the immigration process. So that's what they did. They didn't, like go through what we have to do now with all these lists and waiting. And then I have a friend who actually his wife became a citizen by marriage. It took her 12 years, and that was considered fast. Um, yeah. Codifying Roe, in other words, making Roe v. Wade an actual law instead of a ruling, um, and doing campaign finance reform. So that's all. That's Dean Phillips's major platform. He is active, although as of February 16th, he released a video saying he laid off a lot of his staff members, and that although he's raised over $5 million, including a lot of money that he's put into it himself, he just doesn't have any more money to campaign the way he wants to. He's not suspending his campaign, but he's also not got any more money to spend on campaign things.
For Pennsylvania voters, it's important they know that Phillips did complete the necessary signature requirements to get on the ballot. Um, I don't know if anybody has successfully challenged his application to get on the Pennsylvania ballot, but unless someone knocks him off the ballot, he will be an option for voters in Pennsylvania, whether or not he has the finances to actively campaign. Um, so it's there are choices. At least nominally there will be one in May, and
Um,
and you can vote for people who are like, oh, I don't want to make things better for Trump. It's the primary. You can vote for whoever you want to in Pennsylvania, and it doesn't,
well,
it's not going to
if you're
matter.
a member of that party,
Yeah, if you're a member of the party, but
yeah,
I mean, like,
we have closed primaries, which is a confusing as attested to last week is a confusing topic for new voters. For those who don't know what a closed primary is, you register as a party when you
here, one
register to
second.
vote. Um, you register as a party when you register to vote, and you can only in the city or the state of Pennsylvania, you can only vote for in the primary for members of the party that you are registered with. I am registered non-affiliated, which means I don't usually get a primary vote. I do vote in primaries, but it's for ballot initiatives. Um, and other than that, I don't usually have a primary vote.
So I mean,
Um,
I think open primaries are it's a mixed bag. So
it
in
is.
places like Philadelphia, where we have a de facto single party government and the primary is what decides who will win an election, closed primaries disenfranchise large swaths of the population,
Yes.
and that's not right. But in places where you have competitive voter registration, where the winner of the primary, it's not a foregone conclusion, letting people who aren't a member of a party determine who that party's candidate will be takes away the rights and the voice of the actual members of that party. Like I feel like there needs to be some kind of middle ground where, like,
I
if
mean,
there's a certain
to
a certain percentage of voter registration edge, then primaries should be open.
to be
But
perfectly
even
frank, except for situations like Philadelphia, where it is a single party system, I don't I don't see an object. I don't have an objection to closed primaries. In fact, I think that for the most part, parties should be able to pick to run whomever the heck they want. It shouldn't even really matter who's to the membership of the party. It matters only to the people who are pulling the purse strings, essentially, and running that party. Because you can leave that party if you're a member and you don't like who they pick. Um, that's that I mean that's how the Whigs became the Whigs ran out of members. The leadership of the party picked people that the members didn't like, and they became smaller and smaller, a smaller and smaller and less influential party, and then eventually became irrelevant, and then
but
non-existent.
I mean the idea is that the members of the party are supposed to, pick who is their nominee. I
Right.
mean, it's what's supposed to be and what is are two different things, but
I mean,
like
even
that's
even if we look at presidential primaries as, like, whether closed or open, presidential primaries, as far as the votes of the membership, are relatively irrelevant, is the word I was looking for. Because there are things like super delegates, and the party leadership has an outsized weight in selecting the candidate versus the body of the party.
yeah. I mean that there is definitely room for improvement in our system to have control more in the hands of the rank and file members, and that's it's supposed to be in the hands of the members, and it's not as much as it should be. I mean, the super delegates are a problem, as we saw, in previous presidential elections. But I mean, it's been more of a problem on the Democratic side of the coin than the Republican side of the coin.
Sure, sure.
Like,
But
I mean,
also, Republicans are really good, and there's no offense to you, but Republicans are really, really good at lining up behind one idea or one candidate.
yeah, we have party discipline that is lacking on the Democratic side.
Yeah,
For better or for worse.
yeah,
That is one of the strengths of the Republican Party, but that's not the Republican Party that I'm a part of. I'm a little more old fashioned. I'm the party of the Big Ten.
right,
I believe in making spaces for everyone's opinion. And I want a diverse array of choices, and that is perhaps less of the modern day Republican Party than it should be. Not even perhaps, it is less of the modern day Republican Party than it should be.
right. And there was a party switch also in this area. Democrats became kind of the big tent party in the 80s, even though the Republicans were running on Big Tent, and then they weren't executing it. And the Big Tent became the Tea Party, and then yeah,
Yeah, then we went further off brand,
yeah. So
to put it nicely.
also in the Democrat category we have Senek Unger. You may know him from the Young Turks, TYT, which is arguably a propaganda arm of Russia. Um, Whatever, his policy stances are interesting and do bring interesting arguments into the Democratic race. He says he's the only Medicare for all candidate. He's not. Clearly, I just went through Dean Phillips, who is the actual only other Democratic candidate for president. And Dean Phillips is also Medicare for all, but it does support the argument that in the Democratic Party there's a desire for Medicare for all. There is a desire for immigration reform that isn't just close the borders, eject all the immigrants. There is a desire for um, codifying Roe v. Wade, bodily autonomy. And let's just be perfectly clear: Roe v. Wade, abortion rights are all about bodily autonomy. It isn't about life. It isn't about babies. It isn't about anything except bodily autonomy and control of women. I'm just gonna lay that out as plainly as possible. Um,
Yeah, I have nothing negative to say against that. For our listeners, growing up, my mother, was an abortion doctor. She worked at Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia, and I'm going to put it out there. I'm not especially a fan of abortion. I don't really like the idea, but as a man, it's not my place to tell a woman what they can and cannot do with their own body.
right.
Just flat out. And I mean, perhaps I came to being Republican from a libertarian mindset, and that really jives with my libertarian mindset that what women do with their own bodies is their business. I mean, if collectively women somehow got together and decided abortion is off the table, I would just stay out of that decision because it's not my place. But that's not the way our political process works. So I strongly believe in defaulting to women having the ability to decide what they do with their body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if any Republican doesn't like that, well, too bad. You know where to find me.
I just don't understand. I don't understand the party argument. It, I Let me phrase this. Figure out a way to phrase this. I understand the argument against abortion from a Christianity religious perspective. So Christofascism fits right in with anti-abortionism. Um, it makes sense, it makes sense to from that social perspective to not allow women to control their own reproduction. But I don't understand where that fits into our government in any historical context. Like if you look at from the founding of the nation all the way through modern times, and this goes with a lot of Christo-fascist belief. I don't I don't I can't find a way to make the puzzle pieces fit. I get, progressivism. I get it. I get that I'm ostensibly progressive, and that I have a progressive lean to my beliefs. But I don't get where some of these opposing views fit in with the reality of our history.
Well, I mean, what it comes down to is some people want to keep women down, you know, taking away control of their reproductive rights, like that keeps women like the idea is, keep women busy cranking out babies, and they're too busy with that to have opinions or jobs and stuff like that. And that's really where it comes from.
Sure, and
People
like I said,
people want to.
I can see this. I can totally understand if you are a Christofascist, if you've grown up with a strong government, a desire for strong government, a desire for strong leadership. Perhaps that was lacking in your childhood, or even if it was there, perhaps it was abusive or somehow not beneficial to you, and so now that's what you're seeking. I get it. I get that you want women to have a role, but a role that is secondary to the masculine leadership. I get that and I get that this fits in with your view of your religion, even though it's not accurate to your religion. I get that it matches with what you were taught and how you grew up. What I don't get is why these are the same people waving the flag and saying that they're the only true Americans when it doesn't match up with any part of our history or founding or foundational principles of the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. You're right, but I mean, for better or for worse, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. And the quiet part that Democrats aren't saying out loud is they are overjoyed, because at every election they're just going to say abortion, abortion, abortion over and over again very loudly.
They
And,
should be saying
well,
abortion, abortion, abortion. In fact, Joe Biden should be running on abortion as the only issue that he ever talks about, but he's
I
not.
mean, yeah, it makes sense. Women are 51% of our society,
Right.
like, and they vote. Women vote more than men on average, so.
But Dean Phillips is talking about this and Joe Biden is not.
Well, because Joe Biden is a wrinkly dinosaur stuck in the previous century. I mean, honestly, this is a place where Republicans and I agree, on larger issues. Joe Biden is a hot mess.
Sure.
You know,
Trump
he's
is more of a hot mess, to be fair, but
Yeah, yeah. No,
they're
I absolutely. Given the choice between the two, I'll take Biden. But
I and
I'm
I said this last week. I'll say it again. Why are we running the only two people who can lose a national presidential election? They're the only two people who could lose, literally, and they're gonna run against each other, and we're gonna pick the biggest loser.
Yeah. Well, it's like that South Park episode. We get to choose between the douchebag and the turd sandwich. And which one is which, I'll leave that up to the listeners to decide. But it's really, unfortunately, our political system, a lot of times we default to picking the person who's least awful instead of the good person. And maybe one day we'll get there. We do have some third party success in our city. The WFP folks,
Yeah.
they they did all right. They got they got Nick O'Rourke in.
Well,
And
I was hoping to talk about that this week on with our original guest, um, but you know it. I think it's a conversation that bears having more than once anyway. I what how is there a way to have the same third party success to make a third party bid for president um, as attainable as the Working Family Party, as Kendra Brooks, as Nick O'Rourke has made it.
no, there's not a way. That's like, so. our city council elections are not winner takes all,
Right.
like the president. There's only one president, so whoever wins. We wind up with the Working Families Party because we have a carve out in the city council in the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter that ensures there is quote unquote minority representation on the on city council with a minimum of 2 seats. And
Which, boy, I bet Republicans are wishing they hadn't lobbied for.
no, no, I mean, Republicans are wishing that they had taken it seriously when Kendra Brooks won the first time. Instead, they were like, "Oh, a third party person never wins. It's not going to happen. We don't have to worry about it." And guess what? She did open the floodgate, and once people saw it was possible, the writing's on the wall. Like the day of there being Republican minority representation on city council is over. Like, well, maybe not over. I mean, until people are less pissed off at Republicans, it's over. Because the honest truth is that the WFP campaign for city council, it wasn't vote for the WFP. Their messaging was vote for not Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonated very strongly. It's why they won. I mean, nobody aside from a few people, like nobody knows who Nick O'Rourke and Kendra Brooks really are. They're just some average folks in the city. I mean, Nick's a pastor. He's got a congregation, so that's a little bit, but it's not enough to generate the whatever it was, 60,000 votes or whatever he won with. It's just like maybe in Congress we could get some third party representation by changing things to have minority representation,
I don't know
or
that we
or
need even
switching
need
to a
minority representation. I think yeah, I think ranked choice voting would do the trick personally, but
yeah, ranked choice voting or a parliamentary system, with party lists would potentially allow us to get some more diversity. But in a winner takes all situation like president, like short of changing the Constitution, there's not a way to really snap the duopoly of the Democratic and Republican parties on that office. And I mean, I wish that weren't the case, but I don't see that changing. Um, you know,
I mean, yeah,
without starting somewhere
I
smaller.
don't necessarily see a path forward for it. But I don't, I have to imagine, for my own sanity, I have to imagine that there is. Um,
Yeah, I
anyway,
mean, I think how we would get there is we start with getting more diversity in the legislative branch, where there's like 535 positions to fill. There's more room in there for third parties, versus we have like three independents maybe, or four, whatever the total is in both houses, versus the 500 something. If we could build up real viable third parties that actually were interested in being third parties and not just cozying up to one side or the other, we could maybe get there. But we're not going to get that change starting at the top. It's gonna have to come from below, at smaller individual offices first. And then, as that works its way up through the system, in one day in the future we might get to a place where somebody besides a Democrat or Republican could be president. But
it becomes
you know
name recognition and party membership, and then yeah, it is a long process. What I want to encourage everybody to review all of these candidates, even though there's literally no chance that any of them becomes a presidential candidate. Even Nikki 3Ks isn't going to become a presidential candidate nationally. Um, and But go to ballotopedia.org. That's where I got that has a good summary of every candidate's platform or links to their actual self-published platform, and biographies and history on all of these candidates, even all of the third party ones like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., although I'm sad that Ballotopedia doesn't call Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a nonsense hack like I do. Um, he's just a
That's a
crazy
generous
person.
description.
Yeah. And they don't say it right on his page. It should just be headline nonsense hack. But yeah.
I
Um, Go ahead.
I don't know. I think nonsense hack is perhaps being too generous to RFK.
I mean,
I
I don't know what else to call. He's not like
he's a clown.
he believes what he says is the problem.
Well, I
Um,
mean that's not a problem. That's good that he actually believes what he says, but
I should say not a problem. He believes what he says is the root of the problem.
yeah, what he
He
says is ridiculous.
what he says is ridiculous, and the things that he's latched onto remind me of, like, it's like your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving. Like, dude, no, no, like, no, just it is not a big conspiracy. It would take too much effort for there to be as big a conspiracy as you're laying out. And I get that you come up from a family who's had a ton of tragedy in the last 50 years. People who are very close to you have died in some crazy and mysterious circumstances, and I get it. I get why security was such a big concern at the event that I worked on with you, but dude, no. It's not a crazy conspiracy. Not everyone is out there to get you. And vaccines are real. They're not going to cause your children to grow an extra arm or even anything close to that. Give it a rest, bro. You like, he's seeking medical help from internationally for his larynx condition. So those that don't know or have never heard Robert F. Kennedy speak, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. suffers from a rare condition that makes his vocal cords shrink and harden. So it sounds often like he's either crying or on the verge of crying, and it's very difficult physically for him to speak. Um, and he visits doctors regularly. He has good relationships with actual doctors who help him with this condition, and he goes internationally to seek help for this condition. Dude, ask any of the doctors that you see on a daily basis if vaccines work, and they'll be like, yeah, yeah, they work. Eh.
Yeah, well, I mean it's vaccines obviously work. There's a reason, we don't have shitloads of people with, various problems from polio anymore,
Right.
you know, because guess what, God bless Dr. Jonas Salk, you know,
Yeah.
like the anti-vaccine stuff. I feel like that's part of like this anti-science narrative that has been pushed, and I'm ashamed to say it, but my party is worse about it. Um,
No,
and
it's an
it's one of
anti-intellectualism that really plays into the Christo-fascism that has taken root in the Republican Party. Don't get me wrong. There is a value to the Republican Party. I don't think that all Republicans, or even probably the majority of Republicans, are Christo-fascists. I don't think that most people who call themselves Republicans are idiots or crazy or anything like that. I've heard lots of, and seen lots of people, say things like that, that just, it's over the top. There, not everybody that claims a specific party is of this mindset. It's just that the people who are popular, um are winning their popularity by playing to the base instincts of the people that have joined the party under the Big Tent era and then become Tea Party and then become whatever it is now.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'll say it as a Republican. There are we're not all bad, but there are, we have created space for too many people with just shit opinions. and unfortunately, a lot of them are just idiots. Um,
I mean, speaking of third-party candidates, Ryan Binkley is a third-party Republican candidate for president. Businessman and pastor. He thinks that the problems we face and the blame we lay can all be rectified if we look to God. That's his party platform.
yeah, that's no good. Like religion has no business in government. Like just period. Like that's a step backwards for society, and that's a hill I'll die on. And
That's a hill people
it
already have died on. Why do we keep having the why where did these people come from that want to have this argument again? That's one of Nikki Haley's big party planks is, defederalizing things, and Ryan Binkley, Trump as well. They're all on this defederalize things kick. Didn't we fight a civil war wherein we figured out that, yeah, there's some things that need national attention, and we're a federal government, and that, the power is vested in the people, but is routed through the national government. Um,
Yeah, well, the people pushing that nonsense are not like circling back to what we were talking about earlier with history. Like those people are either just woefully ignorant of history or intentionally ignoring it. One or the other. Maybe both. Maybe, but I think it's usually one or the other. And there are some lessons to be learned, you know. And yeah, like letting religion be in any way revolved involved in government is it just never works out right. Like ever in the history of government, it's always bad. Like, and yeah, that's not going to make me any favors or any friends with the other Republicans, but one of us needs to say it out loud.
Yeah, a bunch of us need to say it out loud, to be honest, and we need to keep repeating it, and then we need to be like, no, really, guys, we fought a war about this, and then we need to I don't know. I don't often, like, I don't advocate for fascism, but there at some point there needs to be consequences for being a complete and utter moron. I don't know where they come in, but yeah. Uh,
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, that's I mean, like we have this great saying here, that people love in Philadelphia, fuck around and find out. Unfortunately, there's been a disconnect from the fucking around and the finding
Finding
out
out, yeah,
for a lot.
in fact, a lot of people fight to disconnect the two, and that's one of the things I love about Philadelphia is we kind of try and relate the two all the time. Um,
Yeah, that's something that's definitely missing, and people just don't want to learn from their mistakes. You did something wrong over and over and over again. Why do you keep doing it?
Doctor,
It's
it hurts
it's,
when I
it's that
do this. Oh, don't do that then, please. Um, Speaking of interrelating things, I wanted to jump on a little international news before we get going. As I said, please check out Ballotopedia. Check out all these candidates, even if they don't have a value in running. Like, they don't have a chance of winning the presidency. I think they're valuable in looking at what each party's total beliefs and a representation of what members of those parties and other members of society at large believe in. Like Cornel West, I love his campaign is essentially based in, quote unquote love Philadelphia, love for your brother. Um, he never has a
yeah.
chance
I,
of winning a presidency, but
I would like Cornell to be a more serious person because I really want to support him more, but he he's making it hard.
Yeah, he always makes it hard. I mean, he unfortunately came up at the same time as, like Don King and other black leaders who could get more immediate attention by being a little bit less serious and a little bit more huckstery. Um, and then didn't change when that became not the
When
truth
that went
anymore.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, still, but good for him for trying.
yeah. But to touch on international news, there is a war in Palestine. It is a very one-sided war. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care if you believe that the war is justified or that who started it or whatever you happen to believe. I'm all good with all that. What is clear is that um, the actual people who live in the Gaza Strip are dying by the hundreds of thousands and losing their homes, and that cannot be considered under any past or present classification of war or war conduct as either legal or fair. Um, the things and places being attacked are not uh, military targets. Um, and this goes back to homelessness and housing. I just pasted a link in all of the outlets about the Secretary Blinken said that Palestinians displaced in Gaza must be able to return home. It is just an essential fact that people without homes are suffer a psychological and physical toll, um, and that just leads to more war, leads to more crime, leads to more stress, and um, I mean, you're creating the next generation of terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to disagree with the assertion that what's going on there is a war. I mean, calling it a war implies that there's at least some level on the Palestinians to meaningfully fight back, and that's just not true. This is a lopsided beatdown.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you had Michael. It's like you had Mike Tyson fighting a toddler, and you know, like calling it a war just gives it an air of legitimacy that it doesn't have. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's an intentional and systematic genocide being perpetuated on the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip. And those are some ugly words, but they most accurately describe what's going on. Like the official death toll now, it's not in the hundred thousands yet. It's right now the Palestinian Health Authority, last I looked, it was like just under 30,000 people. The vast majority of them women and children.
Uh,
What's going on
yeah, the UN
is
says more than 25,000 is the UN's statistic on it as of current.
yeah. I mean, whatever the number is, it's too many. I mean, it's and it's mostly women and children.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a lot of military age men in that list, but they're the minority of the people getting killed.
Well, and
There's
let's
a
be frank. Um, by the numbers, through Israel's the government of Israel, declarations of its war efforts, uh, the numbers reveal that they consider the government of Israel and the war cabinet of Israel consider every adult male a military combatant. Um,
Yeah, that there's no distinction if you were a man in Palestinian and you're like over the age of 10, you're as far as they're concerned, you're a fair target.
Correct.
Doesn't matter if you have weapons or not, they will murder you.
And
And that's
and
terrible.
to be fair, you're gonna in 10 years be worrying about the 10-year-olds because the 10 and under-year-olds because they're going to be a you know military capable people who are going to want to exact revenge. Um,
Well, they're not going to want to. They're going to.
right.
Like it's not it's we're just making things worse over there. I mean, you know, at least the House Republicans are the last thing standing in the way from sending them whatever it is, another like 15 or $20 billion worth of military aid.
And to be honest, that's by accident. You know,
Yeah, it's not intentional, but I'll take it.
Nikki 3Ks talks endlessly about support for Israel and support for other war efforts around the globe. I won't say that Russia has a valid war effort against Ukraine, or that Ukraine shouldn't be supported, but I also will point out that both parties are fully willing to support the war machine of the Ukraine, because based on who donates to them, not based on any party politic belief.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go out there and say it. I got nothing against the Ukraine, and I'm not a fan of Russia either. But if you don't support a ceasefire in the Ukraine as well, where is your humanity? There
Right.
are there are hundreds of thousands of people getting murdered. I mean, I'm in my 40s now, so it's not people in my age bracket are the ones doing the dying, but it's not too long ago that it was people in my age bracket doing the dying. Russia has a conscript based military,
Mm-hmm.
so the overwhelming percentage of the people on the ground are not volunteers. They've been drafted and forced to do this. And to a lesser extent, the same thing. There are definitely more volunteers in the Ukraine, but a lot of people have been drafted into military service in the Ukraine as well. And wherever it is in the world, I just don't want my tax dollars funding death on that scale. Like these are all
And
human beings.
even beyond just death, even if you consider 30,000 people a small number, which it's not, if you even say you are a Zionist, you're pro Israeli government is an ethno state that is called Israel that occupies all of Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. Even
And
even saying that, even being that person, you have to understand that destroying homes, libraries, schools,
hospitals.
hospitals, um, even if they're a source of danger for your people, is not normal or right or any way to go about conducting an effort to rid yourself of terrorism, because it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Like I would, yeah, you can think like you're on the right side of history and you're protecting yourself and your state, but unless you kill literally everyone, that and by everyone I mean everyone in the world that isn't your social group, you're not going to succeed in protecting yourself. You're just going to create more enemies for yourself. Um,
Yeah, well, the whole thing is just it really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I'm getting shit on by people on both sides. I've had Jewish people tell me like I'm a bad Jew and that I'm anti-Semitic because I espouse the basic opinion that it's wrong to murder innocent civilians, whether they be Israeli or Palestinian. And then I've had people on the left, like tell me I support apartheid and support genocide because, as someone who's a quarter Jewish and of German descent, I feel like it's important that Jewish people have somewhere in the world to call home and a safe space. I don't think that means they get to treat their neighbors like shit, but
I
and
don't I
and
don't I'm
subjugate the other people in their areas, but
I
you
mean, I may
know,
be rose-colored glassing this, but I think that, the example the United States sets in its existence is relatively good in this area. We have race and ethnicity problems, and elements of unshared history and elements of melting pot that don't work. At the same time, you don't see mass attacks between different social groups on a regular basis, and you don't have organized, you have some organized social groups that espouse military style attacks against other social groups, but they're not successful.
yeah, we've hopefully successfully put that part of our history in the past, and we won't have any repeats of that. I mean, in the past we did have awful shit like that. We had a whole period in the South where, a paramilitary KKK went around and just murdered people for being black and doing things they didn't approve of.
That's my joking
And
reference for Nikki 3Ks, by the way.
yeah, I think people caught that one.
I don't know. I'm doing joke explainer. Blame me.
But like I don't think it's I think we've as a society are in the process of moving past that. I don't think we've gotten there
I don't.
completely, like,
I don't
but
think
we're
we'll
we're
ever
we're, we're
get
working on
there.
it.
I think that the problem, these types of problems will always exist in every society. There will always be people who seek power amongst small groups of people who feel like they're on the outside. And there will all and those groups of people who feel like they're on the outside will always be organized around strongmen people. And by strongman, I don't necessarily mean males. I mean strongman as in the type of
Personality.
personality.
Yeah,
Um,
Margaret Thatcher was a strong man.
yes.
Yeah,
The what is it? Iron lace glove or whatever. Um,
yeah.
and
Well, yes,
and as people fall out of power, fall out uh of relevance, or as groups feel like they're oppressed or attacked or can be convinced that they're being oppressed. Hello, Christians, you're not oppressed. um you know you get people who will organize them, and they will always exist. They will always pop up. They will always exist. That's how Hitler became Hitler. That's how the Zionist government is functioning now. It's how the leadership in Gaza was functioning. It's how Iran sees, it's how the Iranian government, current Iranian government, came into power. It's how Putin came into power and maintains power. Is he successfully conned a bunch of people into saying he's the one that can provide relevance to the Russian state again. It's
he's trying real hard.
it's what Trump campaigns on. He campaigns on "Make America Great Again." It's not great. It's not great. It never was greater than anything else. It's not declined to a precipitous state where, we like to say it's failing. We like to call out its flaws, but on the whole, it still functions. You know, people.
Well,
Go to
it's an
work and go
unpopular
home.
sentiment, but I love America. You know, for all our flaws, you know, this is my home, and I love it. And you know, I'm not going to pretend we don't have our problems. You know, I want to see us do better, and I think we can. But it's this is still a great place to be. You know, it's why people from all over the world want to come here.
Yeah.
And you know, I just want to you know make that clear. Like we have problems, but I still love this place, and it's great to be here.
Well,
And actually, and since I got the platform for a few
yeah, go ahead.
minutes, or we still have a few minutes left, you know, there's a couple local things going on that I wanted to draw your listeners' attention to. Um, you know, there are some primary races coming up in Philadelphia that are particularly relevant to you know our statewide politics. You know, the state house is currently has a it's 101 to 102 majority in favor of the Democrats. This is a Democratic city, so I'm going to presume that most of your members or most of your listeners are Democrats. I know there are some Republicans out there. You know, if you're listening, Sammy the Goldfish, F you. But you know, for the rest of you, you know, I'm sorry if we don't agree, but I still, you know, I still respect you. Um, so, you know, in my neighborhood in West Philly, the 188th is my state house district, and we've got a very popular state representative, Rick Krajewski, um, who you know I wasn't necessarily a fan of when he got in, but he's done a lot of great work since, and you know I'll admit I was wrong. You know, good on you, Rick, for doing what's right. Rick is going to be facing a primary challenger in the primary. There is this guy Tony Dfax King, Dphax. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that or right, and his last name is King. He's challenging Krajewski in the primary. The only thing I know about King is that in 2015 he tried to primary Blackwell in the third council district, and it didn't work out. So, you know, I'm gonna be trying to learn some more about this gentleman. Trying to track him down in person and find out what he's about. But if you're in the 188th, you know, that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Um, you know, maybe Mr. King is better. Who knows? You know, hopefully we can find out, and it'll be a lively contest. Um, Also in West, but a little bit to the north of me. We're having a contested race in the 10th State House district. Um, the current holder of that office is Amon Brown, who is just objectively, you know, not the best person to be representing anybody in the state house. And we're going to have an exact repeat of the 2022 election. We're going to have Amon Brown facing off against Saj Purple Blackwell and Cass Green. So basically, you know, we've got a pack of Crayola crayons going on with brown, green, and purple taking the lead. Um, you know, this one I have mixed feelings about. This is like the progressive playbook in our city, where progressives unseat the representatives of long-term black residents when there is when the black vote is split in the primary. And last time, the progressive candidate Cass Green, she lost by like there's like a less than 200 votes. So this is a do-over. She's gonna win this time, but you know that's an interesting race to keep an eye on. And then the last one I want to talk about, the last state house race, is over in the 172nd state house district, which is like parts of Northeast Philly and a little sliver of Montgomery County. You've got Kevin Doyle, uh, who is sort of a hot mess. He was in the news recently for some drunken buffoonery at a bar, and he is facing a challenger in the Democratic primary. Um, and it's like I think it's like Johnny Doc's nephew or something. They're running against him, and Doyle is he's connected in his own way to other
It,
political dynasties.
it's
So it's sort of
another who can we run that would lose to themselves?
yeah. So you've got two Democrats duking it out, and it's the district leans Democratic. So whichever one of them wins is most likely going to be the winner. And then, but in a real rarity for Pennsylvania or for Philadelphia, there are also two Republicans running in the primary. What is it? Let me see if I have their names here somewhere, just because I can't even keep track of it. Let's see. Let's go back to the 172nd. There we go. So we've got Gil Aziz and Patrick Gushue running. Um, I don't really have a hat in the race, as to which one of them is going to win. I think Patrick has a little bit of a stronger ground game, but we'll see. It's just gonna be interesting and unusual for there to be a competitive primary for both Democrats and Republicans in a state house, and then it's going to go to the general, and well, the Democrat is going to be the most likely winner. There is a chance that the Republicans could squeak in on that one. So if you're in the 172nd and you feel strongly either way about it, research the candidates, find the one you like, and push it, because that could be the balance of the state house, coming up in the next session, which is whatever side of the aisle you're on. That's important, to whichever viewpoint you have. And then the last thing I want to talk about for politics is the statewide race for the auditor general. We have our local politician Malcolm Kenyatta running against the incumbent Timothy DeFore, and I know most of your listeners are Democrats, and their natural inclination is going to be to support Malcolm Kenyatta, but they should really take an honest look at Timothy DeFore. He's been an auditor for his entire career. He was a he was a county controller, I believe in Dauphin County, Harrisburg. He received all types of bipartisan acclamation for the quality work he's done, both on the local and the state level. And he is the most qualified candidate. And the auditor, let's be real, it's not really a political position. I mean, it's an elected position, but it's not one that is going to make any of these social changes or whatever that people want.
Right.
Like this
You
is a
want
per this
somebody who's good at rooting out
fraud and
problems
corruption.
and fraud
Yeah.
and corruption, not somebody who's politically your friend.
Yeah,
Um,
and he's the most qualified candidate. At least that's my takeaway. But that I just think that people should look at it and think about it, you know, beyond the lens of party politics. Like which one of these two people would actually do a better job? Perennial candidate Malcolm Kenyatta, or the guy who's done this professionally for their entire career? You know, and then the rest of them, I I don't really have anything constructive or fun to say about any of them,
eh,
except for
what
don't vote for Stacy.
one of also please stop voting for Rochelle Bilal, but it's just we don't have to worry about that for a couple of years, but just
Oh
please.
God, that was embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah, the informed electorate is not our forte, it seems, but I keep encouraging people, and I will continue to encourage you all to please check out the links. We posted links to all of the things that we're talking about, and opinions and articles and facts about all the things that we're talking about today, in the chats. And they've been on screen. So if you're watching on screen, you can type them down. I usually leave them on screen for quite a while, so you can type them down. And any place you're watching, you can probably find it in the chat box or the chat replay. Um, but explore these
Mhm.
topics. Take the time to explore these topics, please, please, please. It's important for you, for your family, for other people's families. If you care about any of your neighbors in any way, or even if you just care about yourself and your children, or even just yourself, to explore what's going on in politics. You may want to say, "Oh, I'm not a political person," but just living life, you're automatically a political person because somebody is taking credit for your output and your humanity. Thank you, Tim,
Would it
for
be possible if I
yeah,
could talk about one? I have one hyper local thing I want to talk about. If it's all right, if I just
yeah,
take
yeah,
like a minute or two for that.
yeah.
So for any of your listeners who are members of the West Philadelphia community, um, I want to draw your attention to most of you, if you're involved in the community, you know there's been a lot of negativity and just bad press associated with the Mariposa Food Co-op um, recently. And I'm a member of a group called Friends of Our Co-op who are trying to make the co-op a better place. We are going to be out at the Clark Park Farmers Market this weekend on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If any of you are member owners, please stop on by. We'll be set up on the edge of the dog bowl. I'll have some ridiculous Halloween prop so people know, which one is us. Maybe a giant werewolf, who knows, whatever I feel like digging out of my basement to grab people's attention. But there is a real and serious effort to make the co-op a better place that reflects the diversity of our community. And, I would just hope that anybody who is interested in that, stop on by, talk for a couple minutes. There is a real opportunity for people in the community to get involved and to do something positive. And that's all I'll say on that topic.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd like to thank you again for coming on, chatting with me. It's been 2 hours, 2 hours and 8 minutes, plus some pre-show. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate long conversations. I think that it's important that we delve into these topics. And obviously, I'm a progressive. You're a Republican. We have a lot. We live in a Democrat city. It's not on fire. And there are people of every declared allegiance that are willing to think about and study problems and come up with solutions and or propose things and that understand the problem on a basic level. And I think it's important that we have these conversations. So
I always appreciate the opportunity to come on your platform and share my opinions. Um, and I'm going to be doing it online all the time anyway, whether people like it or not. I've got more opinions than I know what to do with.
yeah.
But I think like in an environment like this, it's great, to see two people who are ostensibly on opposite sides of the spectrum politically. But the truth is, we sit down and we have a long conversation like this, and we see that although we don't agree on everything, that we have more in common than what separates us. And anybody who's listening, like keep that in mind. Like the person, who you think like, oh, like they're a Republican, they don't share any of my values. That's probably not true. Like talk to that person, and I bet you'll be surprised at what you can agree on. It's not going to be everything, and there's definitely going to be stuff that's going to be contentious, but maybe we can make the world a little bit better place if we can focus on what we can agree on and how we can agree and work together to change things.
I think
You know,
that
and
the only I think the only non-starter is somebody who doesn't believe in the ultimate humanity of every other person on the planet. That if you believe, the only non-starter is if you believe that inherently some individuals are less good or valuable than other individuals, that's a non-starter. I can't have a conversation with that.
I respect that because if you don't believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all human life, then like don't run into me in a dark alley
Right?
because I'm gonna
I'm
you're
tolerant
gonna
of a lot of things. I'm intolerant of intolerance. I'm sorry. It's just who I am.
no, I mean that's reasonable. I mean, in order to have that conversation, it's sort of in order to have the conversation with people with opposing viewpoints, it's sort of predicated upon the notion that we all have inherent worth and dignity that's
Mm-hmm.
valuable in its own sake.
Yep.
And that's people who are willing to work across the aisle and have conversations across the aisle. I would think that sort of one of those, like, one leads to the other. But I respect where that's coming from. And I just we're all in this place together. We all need to do what we can together to make it better. I don't have any kids, but James does. And one of the universal things in life is everybody wants a better future for their children. And I don't have any children, so I want a better future for whoever comes after me. And we don't agree on what a better future is, but what we can say without a doubt is that we're not going to get there if we don't work together.
Right. Well, again, thank you for joining me today. I'm gonna wrap up the broadcast so we can get out of here and I can get some lunch.
Right
And you
on.
got
I
things to
do have
do
work to
too.
do.
I appreciate every time you come on. Thank you for coming on and filling in today. I think that you're a great guest, whether or not you're filling in, and that's why we have you on regular episodes. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, and apologies to everyone who thought you were getting Kendra Brooks and instead you get Republican Tim. It's like your wish order.
Yeah, this is Working Families Party wish for Kendra Brooks is Tim. Um Tim who is a registered Republican but has relatively progressive ideals.
Well, I
um
mean, party isn't everything.
No, party isn't everything. And so thank you. I'm gonna go to a outro one up of me. I appreciate it. You're welcome back on the show anytime, even if you're not the special guest. And I look forward to talking with you again.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you to my viewers for tuning in. I really appreciate those of you who tune in and stick around or even listen, like when you get the chance. It's I think these are important conversations, and every conversation, every story shared is a step toward a more informed, empathetic world. Um and it's true. It sounds like corporate speak, or like wishful thinking or inspirational poster or something like that. um that line was written late last night, and I've kept it because I agree with it. I think conversations are important, even if you don't necessarily start out from a place of agreeing with the person who you're sitting down having a conversation with. um there are very few non people who are unable to have a conversation with, and they're easily identifiable. So try and have conversations, try and share stories. I will continue to try and share stories on this show every week. If you like what you've seen, please consider supporting us. You can do so as easily as hitting like on this broadcast every once in a while, or sharing it with your friends on your platform of choice: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, uh, Blue Sky, what have you. We're all over the place, and even if we're not on that platform, you can copy a link and share it with your friends there. Subscribe to us if you'd like to give a little bit more support. If you'd like to give even more support, donate on Patreon, patreon.com/Light Thief Productions. I know asking for money is a big reach for some people, but if you've got $1 or five extra a month, and you'd like to see this program improve or be better in some sort of way, please consider donating. Next week we have Dr. Adam Toppin with Philly Improv Theater, and it should be a really interesting topic. We've sort of broached on it this week, but we'll be talking a lot about anxiety and depression and how those things are somewhat inherent to the modern condition. I know it sounds sad, but I think it'll have a happy ending. Um, with that, enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, and tune in next week. Thanks.